Uh, Mr. O'Toole, I probably want to start with you, but others may certainly welcome to respond as well. When we talk about the significance, the importance of just the infrastructure of storage, clearly important to the management aspect across the country, particularly in the West. And yet the reality that we deal with is this opposition that we see to surface storage, regardless of the size and the specifics. You said, I think your words were that we lost the commitment to infrastructure in California, and I think in other parts of the country as well. We all recognize that infrastructure has got to be key here. We all recognize the need, and yet we've got, I think, some views, some perspectives that perhaps are old or outdated, certainly a negative view of reservoir projects. In my state, we don't have the big reservoirs, the Hoover Dam. They are much, much smaller scale, and we've been able to work relatively cooperatively with some communities that have a very keen focus on the environmental aspects. Sitka is a beautiful example of a community that came together and said, we've got to, for purposes of our little island community, we've got to have this capacity, and they worked together. But we're dealing with a difficult mindset. How do we change it? Are you seeing things improve for the better or for the worse? And if they're not changing for the better, what do we do? Because there's a recognition that we have to address this.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's something I do know a lot about, and I mentioned I was on a Federal Water Commission in the mid-90s, and it was Senator Hatfield's bill to look 20 years into the future. Well, we are now 20 years into the future. I'll give you one example. Our valley is half Colorado and half Wyoming. The river crosses the state line 12 times. And so on one level, we've learned how to work together in the two states, but Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado put together roundtables all over the state of Colorado to try to deal with their long-term discussions. In the Yampa White, they did consultants did a study, and every single watershed is going to need storage. And this is the consultant's report. When I did the commission in the 90s, the word was we'll never build another storage reservoir. That just isn't true. And what, my lifestyle is to form partnerships and coalitions. And I work with Ms. Zemer, Audubon, Environmental Defense Fund, many other groups. And we all realize that working together on a watershed where you're working together to do multiple things. Our ranch is an important bird area with Audubon. We've done a project on our river to integrate our fishery and our irrigation. But without storage, we're never going to be able to fulfill what we know is going to be the need. We had 2 summer rain events in December and January at 7,000 feet in Wyoming. That water needs to be stored for the long term. In my own view, I'm looking at 2 weeks early and 2 weeks late in terms of our capability for irrigation of water. And without storage, we're not going to get there. So you ask, what can we do? This bill is one thing. The infrastructure dollar bill in Wyoming, we have some far-reaching thought in the mid-'80s, put oil, gas, coal, uranium into a water fund, along with Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, Wildlife Fund, and an education fund, so that we can begin to fund, to be able to take dollars, federal dollars to help match in what's called the private-public partnership. I'm sure you're aware of that discussion. That's the future. So you've got to stimulate. You've got to let people know that permitting is not going to be the impediment. It's going to be facilitated so that when a watershed gets together with many partners, you're going to be able to do a project because the federal government says it's a priority.
Well, and I appreciate all that you've said in terms of the collaboration, the awareness, the education, the funding. But I think we've just got a problem in this country with this, call it the NIMBY attitude. I want to have the benefits of this, but I don't I don't want to know that you're doing this. I don't want to know that you're building this, whether it is a reservoir, the storage capacity, or whether it's pipelines that we use to move an energy resource so that we can get natural gas to the Northeast. It seems to me that we've got some attitudes that we need to change, and I appreciate your efforts, and it sounds like everybody on the panel here in really trying to build these collaboratives that will help us change it. But we can talk about doing it legislatively. We also need to recognize that we've got to be on the ground educating Americans, regardless of where you are, whether you're in a drought-prone area or not so much, that these are shared benefits, and that ultimately somebody is the host to this. Whether in Louisiana they're a host to offshore development, they bear the burden of that development offshore. How you share it, I think it's no different than water, because water is absolutely key to everything that we do. Senator Cantwell.